When you came back from being deported, did the judge hold through and introduce you to his friend Duke?
When we came back, the first night I got off the plane, remember that night at the Duke of Hanamaku night? We were staying in the Royal Hawaiian that night. Yeah, and you guys were underage. You said, "Would you get me a beer?" They were smoking dope and dropping acid, but they wanted a beer. And meantime, Duke was sitting over in the corner by himself. So I grabbed a beer and sat down with the Duke, and we're talking about his influence in Australia and Greg's influence in Australia. And he was telling me about the old days in town under the old banyan tree and shaping the boards on the beach, and about Wally Forsyth and John Kelly. And so Duke and I talked for maybe 2 hours that night. He passed away 3 months later. Wow. So I finally got to meet the Duke, and it was an honour, and a great honour and a pleasure.
Wonderful.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, do you keep in touch with George Greg Noll?
Oh yeah, I surf with George almost every day. He surfs Wadigo's beach on an air mat, and it's my regular check in the morning, as is his. I get there about 8:30. My wife goes to gym. I go down to Wadigo's. He's always there on his air mat.
Yeah, speaking of George, once again, referring to the auction, I'm really proud of the stuff that I've been able to pull up. Bob shaped a board when he went to the Maury Pope factory with a flex tail that was influenced. Basically, it was George's knee board, and they left enough foam in there so they could stand up and ride it. And then following on that, Corky Carroll's. Corky came up with a flex tail model of his own that Hobie designed, and you'll see it down at the auction as well. And Corky will be glad to tell you how good it worked. So once again, I try really hard. I spent like 2 years finding the things that I know that these guys shape, the kind of boards that they've built, and I try to pattern the auction around that. And like I said, there's a great McTavish set, there's a killer Brewer set. Greg's got some great boards in the auction. And so the people you see here tonight and the people you're going to meet down in the auction, Corky, we've got 4 boards of Corky's that are really great. So I'm really stoked that the guys come and support the auction. Once again, the auction is a fundraiser for the Outrigger Duke Kahanamoku Foundation, the scholarship fund. A quick little story on that. Last auction, we gave $10,000 scholarship to this one kid who was going to the University of Hawaii. And we had a luncheon and we presented him that $10,000 scholarship, and he said, "You know, Randy," he said, "I thought I was going to have to flip burgers to go to school." He says, "Now I get to go surfing."
I got a question for Greg. How many boards did you take to Australia with the bike that was in the movie in '56, and who made them for you?
I think there was 5 or 6 of us took boards. Tommy Zahn, Mike Bright. I took a couple, probably 5 or 6, and then we left those boards. We left them down there, and when we got back, there was a couple of the guys who made boards down there that were making the Akanu, or not the Akanuis, but the longboards. Were writing back for sources on balsa wood and templates and stuff like that. I hear they've still got a couple of the boards down there in one of the museums or something. I never really thought the Australians, as proud as they are, would ever admit that the boards we brought down there kind of got things kicked off down there. But McTavish is an honest guy.
Mate, it's in all the history books, Greg. The kids learn it at school.
Actually, Mitch had told me one time, he said, "You know, Greg," he said, "I was a 13-year-old kid standing on the beach when you and Mike were surfing, wherever in the hell it was, I lost track. And he said, I decided right then and there, and that's what I was going to do with the rest of my life." And for a midget to admit that is a pretty big deal, you know.
Were those Quigs boards you took down?
Quigs, were they Quig shapes?
They were basically the Joe Quigg, Matt Kibblin style, the Aussie style boards, referred to as Malibu boards. And today when you go to Australia, I think you guys still call Mals. They call them Mals, you know. When I went down there to Noosa, we brought a bunch of guys down there and had a great time, and one of the magazines came down and they did an article, and the thing came out, and I was standing by a Woody, and the title on the thing was, "This the man that turned your son into a worthless beach bum?" And they told the story, you know, about the boards, the first boards going down there.
I wanted to ask Jock a quick question. Many of you, you saw Jock referred to in the film. In the late 60s, really, with the longboards, it was really hard to surf pipeline. I mean, it was really tough to get in the tube. I got a Butch Van Arsdale was considered the first Mr. Pipeline. Boards began to go short, and Jock Sutherland took over the mantle of Mr. Pipeline. And Jock also won the Surfer Pole that year as the best surfer in the world. And then he joined the Army and disappeared, and that opened the door for Jerry Lopez. And I just wanted to say, giving the opening there from you to Jerry.
Oh yeah, Jerry was a talent guy basically, and we grew up on the North Shore, and we basically paid our dues early. Took a lot of wipeouts, and realized in watching Butch, some of the stuff he did on the old boards was great. The 10-foot boards, red 10-foot board. I think Dick shaped, Greg shaped them a couple, but Dick shaped them maybe more. And watching Dick and watching Butch, do some of the stuff he did was not hard to imitate, especially switching feet, because riding the longer boards then was tough. If you were a backsider, it was easy to not see the wave coming. So imitating Butch, and then when the boards started to get a little bit more streamlined, some of Dick's pipeliner boards, and maybe 1965 or so around there, the boards started to get more maneuverable. The fins started to get, the Greeno influence. Fins started to get a little sleeker, so you could turn them more easily. And so when Jerry started to come out, he'd been Almana trained. Thank you. So when Jerry brought his Almana bowl, surfing his finesse, his sense of timing out there at Pipeline, it fit in. But because of the first boards, I think it was a Wardy that he was riding, he was purling a lot. We got him to angle his takeoff, and just a few little tips, and then he was off and running. So it was great to be able to surf with him for a couple of years.
I got to blow the whistle on Jock. When we first went to the North Shore, there was nobody surfing, and his mom lived right at Chung's Reef, and I remember Jock when he was this big, and he was this big, still crapping in his pants, and he ended up turning into one of the very best surfers on the North Shore.
Thanks, I appreciate that, Greg. I don't think Mom used to enjoy feeding these guys lunches because my dad, Mom's husband, came from the Pete Peterson, Tom Zahn era, and these were the guys that I looked up to when they're first coming over from Macau. I don't think I was crapping my pants.
One other thing I wanted to comment on, and I'd like Dick to follow up on this one, was really, you saw in the film a lot of accolades for Mike Hinson. And Mike Hinson was the first one to really take the low rail board, and that changed everything. And Jerry Lopez told me that at Pipeline, the low rail made it possible to finally really pull into the tube. And Dick followed up on that with a lot of design. Dick actually came out with a 3-fin board long before the thruster ever came along, and utilized that shapes. And it's progressed that, when you think about that, that was the late 60s, early 70s, and here it is 40 years later, and Dick's still up here on the stage, so that says something for him.
I still have Butch's template from 1962. I call it the Pipeliner. I still use it.
This is for Greg. How was that big day at Macau in '69? Is it true that you haven't surfed since then?
I was standing next to Freddie Hemmings one time, and there was a bunch of us, and they said, this is Leroy Granis, and he took photographs, and this is Freddie Hemmings, and he won this, and this is Greg Noll, he had a big day at Macau, and Freddie nudged me, and he goes, yeah, you bug on, you're still riding that same wave. I don't know, it's just a big old day, and there's been a lot of, this and that about it, and it was, it was a day that I won't forget, and it's probably been too much said about it already.
I've seen Greg surf since then, at Double Island Point, when he came to Noosa. You went out with Bill Wallace and you went surfing at Double Island Point.
So to answer your question, Greg has still kept surfing. Good job. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thanks for Randy Rarick.
Which one of you guys made it to Maui for Jimi Hendrix?
Good what?
Maui, Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.